It's time to preview and start making picks for week 2 of the NFL season. Our weekly 6-pack of picks plus the Thursday nighter, the Vikings at the Philadelphia Eagles. Coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks so much, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are one. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100 at Prize Picks. All right, some good prize pickable games here on the schedule. Let's start in Buffalo, Matt, because this is a massively important football game for the Buffalo Bills, who came away Monday night, have a short week now, get to be home against the Las Vegas Raiders, who came out hot and won week 1. And for those Buffalo Bills, they need a big bounce back here in week number 2 against a team that they should beat, and they are favored big against, 9.5 points favored at home for the Buffalo Bills hosting the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough assignment for the Raiders. I mean, to come all the way across country against a team that I don't want to say was embarrassed, but didn't live up to their recent high standards. I think the Bills bounce back big. I mean, I'm a little worried about their O-line, and getting Max Crosby blocked is certainly an issue. And I do think the Raiders offense is quite good. I mean, it's well above average and can hang around in this game. But I think the Bills are a couple of these teams like Kansas City, the Eagles, the Bills, the Bengals. I'm expecting bounce backs from them.
The Bengals and Bills specifically are the teams that I don't think you want to play this week. And I'm actually kind of disappointed looking at the FanDuel lines. By the way, all of our lines today brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. 9.5, it was so many points. I was like, oh man, okay, I want to go Bills big here. There's a lot of points. So it makes me not want to take the Bills in this game.
It's pretty steep.
Or really makes me not want to take either team, because I don't believe Las Vegas is going to go in and beat the Buffalo Bills either. It's just a lot of points, so I might want to stay away from it. But I mean, whether it's money line or whatever it is in your pick'ems, I mean, I think the Las Vegas Raiders might run into a little bit of a buzzsaw against the Bills, who cannot be happy about that performance. But again, it's a short week, and there are some reasons the Bills lost that football game. So, hey, maybe the Las Vegas Raiders, the Jimmy G-led Raiders, we used to call him Jimmy W in San Francisco because all the wins. He's got that magic. Maybe they do roll into Buffalo, and they'll be talking about the Raiders a little bit differently next week.
Yeah, again, if I have to pick which we do, I will lay the points, but I would not touch this. I think the Raiders can hang around. I really do.
Yep, and hanging around is enough, so I will take the points, but I don't love it. I don't love it. The Las Vegas Raiders. I'm trying to look it up right now, actually, to find what the latest is on Jacoby Myers, because I mean, he had a nice little game for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Protocol, and he just has to go through the steps.
Yeah, so I don't think you can have anything, as of Wednesday, still going through concussion protocol. So we'll see if he comes out of that on the other side, and we'll find out when we get closer, which will absolutely help. And
he played great.
The thing is that the recipe that the New York Jets used to beat the Bills, I don't think the Las Vegas Raiders have the bullets on defense, especially in the secondary. Like, are you going to go pick off Josh Allen 3 times? And Josh Allen knows I can't go throw 3 interceptions again. So I think that's why it's going to look a lot different. So, I'm kind of waffling now, even on the 9.5 points, but keep it close, Raiders. I think they can do that. Max Crosby, get home a couple times. Jimmy, find your weapons. Hopefully Jacoby Myers is playing, and maybe the Raiders will be that chippy team here in 2023. How about the San Francisco 49ers? They are 1-0 on the road at the surprisingly 1-0 Los Angeles Rams. Can the Rams keep it going and surprise another team that they were supposed to be well behind in the NFC West this year? And looking at the 49ers, I don't know if everything's going to go as perfect as it did in week 1 for them. 8 points the Rams are getting at home. That's a lot of points for a home dog to get, even against a good team, Matt. And I also got to ask you, Matt, about Puka Nacua. What do you think about him in your daily fantasy lineups on the waiver wire? Because if he's going to get that Cooper Kupp role and you got a really good quarterback and a really good coordinator, that's a role you want to have. And I want a piece of that in my fantasy leagues, whether the Rams win or not.
Yeah, he is going to get the Cooper Kupp role, and he's going to get a lot of targets, and a lot of it schemed up. And as a player, a prospect, I thought he was more of a late round 2, more like a round 3 draft pick. But, it's a deep receiver class, and sometimes those guys fall, and maybe his style wasn't for everybody. And I think there were some injuries coming out of BYU. But I think he's a steal for the Rams. I loved how Stafford played in Seattle. And as long as he's healthy and doing his thing, he's hard to play against. But I think the Niners are too hard to play against. And I would think, much like last week in Pittsburgh, which blew me away, there's probably going to be a lot of Niners fans in that stadium in LA as well. And I think their game translates to the road really well either way. I'm going to take the Niners here. I think they're the best team in the league right now.
And when you talk about home dogs for the Los Angeles Rams, what they call SoFi Stadium in LA is Levi's Stadium South, because the 49ers fans show up. So that home field advantage is not even there. So touchdown plus, can the Niners win this one? I think they should. I think they will. So I'm actually going to take the 49ers and give away those 8 points against the Los Angeles Rams, because the 49ers answered every question I had about them in week 1, except for one, and that was at right tackle. And there's no TJ Watt on the other side. There's Aaron Donald, but there's no TJ Watt coming from the outside. So, and even then, that wasn't enough for the Steelers. So, yeah, give me that offense. Give me the Brock Purdy magic against the Rams by 8+ points.
I feel pretty confident about this one. I mean, frankly, if they played this a week ago, is this line 10, 11? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and actually, I'm a little bit surprised. So the Bills Raiders line we talked about, I think the bounce back effect is factored in here. There's not as much of that in this one. I think there's a little bit of okay, the Rams, they're not as bad as we thought they were. And I think they might come down back to earth. So, some elasticity there for the Rams.
Yeah, I tend to think so too. I mean, the Niners are I am not betting against the Niners. I can promise you that.
It's hard to bet against the 49ers right now. And we'll see if they come back down to earth a little bit. But, man, too much talent both sides of the ball. And really, that quarterback question was okay, is Purdy really the guy? He's the guy.
He's the guy.
Teammates believe in him too, man. So, all right. Next, we got Bears, Bucks, Colts, Texans, battle of the rookie quarterbacks, Giants, Cardinals, Commanders, Denver Broncos, and, of course, Thursday nighter, Vikings at Philadelphia Eagles. Next. Today's episode brought to you by Jase Medical and the Jase Case. The Jase Case provides you with 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase Case. The Jase Case provides those 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind. So no matter where you are, if during a pandemic, that could be helpful, right? Or if you're just out camping with the family, you don't have cell phone reception, be prepared for some emergencies that could happen in life. And Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's Jase, Jase medical.com, promo code Locked On. All right, taking a look at our Sunday 6-pack, Matt, and game number 3 of our 6-pack is the Chicago Bears at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa favored by 3 points at home. And Matt, as bullish I was on the Bears coming into the 2023 season, I didn't like at all what I saw on the field from them, and a little bit worrisome in the preseason. and very worrisome in week 1. Offensive line wasn't as good as I thought. The use of the playmakers that were upgraded in the offseason, Justin Fields' ability to see it and let it rip, all of the above, and the defense wasn't doing much either, which was something that they were going to have to be a lot better at. So I don't know if I can say after 1 week and overreact and be all the way out on the Chicago Bears, but going on the road and beating a decent football team is something that I can't project at this point. So I'm giving up the 3 points at home for the Bucs.
Yeah, and on the flip side, almost like the Rams, the Bucs, this sounds like I'm putting them down, but looked like a professional football team in week 1 where I didn't think the Rams and Bucs necessarily would. I mean, I thought it's, massive rebuild time, but you have the Staffords and Donalds and Evans and Vita Veas and Levante Davids of the world out there on these two teams, and they've won a lot of football games lately. Like, we can say they're tanking. The front office can punt for the season, but the players go out there and try to win like crazy, and the Bucs probably have more good players than the Bears right now, and certainly have more success lately. I imagine it's still early in the year. Is heat going to be an issue in a Florida game? And more than anything, I just hated what the Bears showed us yesterday, really, or last week on both sides of the ball. So 3 seems a lot for me for the Bucs to give anybody, but I'm going to.
And if we're talking hot seats, by the way, which we did yesterday, I think the Bears, you might start looking at that situation like, okay,
yeah,
new coach, new quarterback, if things continue to go in this direction. And if it does continue to go in that direction for the Bears, then, you're talking about a high pick that makes those decisions a little bit different come the offseason time as far as the quarterback goes. Now, I still believe, the talent's there for Fields. You could throw out week 1, but at this point now, I'm going to start needing to see it from Fields in the Bears offense, whereas I can project it in the offseason, and you can let your mind run off and project, that year 3 breakout that we've seen from quarterbacks. And, but I did not see what I wanted to see in week 1. That's for sure. So I'm going to need to see it before I start believing again in the Bears.
Exactly. I mean, show me some legit NFL passing and, more than the fluky stuff. And he didn't run that great, They
didn't. That was what was weird, is they were just kind of forcing short stuff, but they didn't force anything short to the best new player they got in DJ Moore. He got 2 targets.
Yeah.
When it was open downfield, Fields didn't see it, or was just kind of skittish and was running around. The offensive line wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be coming into the year. It's kind of just all bad all around. And, scheme wise, it didn't. I don't know if you saw JT O'Sullivan's breakdown of the Fields' performance in the game, but he was kind of ripping the offensive coordinator a lot in that one. There were some bad looks. On that
I can believe it. Yeah.
Offense. But again, they can get it right. There's plenty of time to get it right. A lot of season left, but now I got to see it. And by the way, almost disrespectful to the Bucs to call them the Rams as far as roster goes, player for player. They don't have as good of a quarterback. There's no Aaron Donald necessarily, but there's still a lot of good talent on the Bucs. So maybe
there are. Yeah.
A little bit too hard. So yeah, giving up those 3 points in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 2. How about this one?
Good.
Okay, so we got CJ Stroud and the Texans that are hosting Anthony Richardson and the Indianapolis Colts in week 2. And it is the Colts on the road favored by 1 point.
I mean, this isn't going to be an AFC Championship preview or anything of that nature, but this is fun. This is 2 really highly drafted quarterbacks playing twice this year and maybe twice a year for 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, that's exciting. Maybe it's the beginning of a new rivalry. I thought the Colts played a lot better than the Texans in week 1, and I don't want to overreact to one game, but the Colts were harder to play against. I thought the Texans looked overwhelmed against a Ravens team that I wasn't that impressed with. So I'm going to take the Colts on the road, and I think their run game translates to the road pretty well, and they have the Leonards and Buckners and those type of guys too that have been around the block. That's kind of that Buccaneer conversation.
I'm going the other way. I'm going to take the 1 point. I'm going to take the 1 point and go Texans because I think this game is close enough, and it's hard to project what things will look like with a rookie quarterback week to week. I didn't like how much Anthony Richardson got hit and put himself in harm's way. I think that's just bad overall for the offense. And while it didn't look great for the Texans, I thought they played in a way that they'll be able to keep some games close, especially when they're not outmatched, by a team like they were with the Baltimore Ravens. So I like the Texans here, and I'm going to take that
Okay.
one single point with Houston at home. But that, again, this is a popcorn game where it's like, all right, young quarterbacks, let's see what you got going head to head. Something that hopefully these quarterbacks are both good. We see for a decade to come.
Yeah, I mean, last year it'd be like, I'm not really gonna pay attention to this game. This year, I can't wait to watch it.
Exactly. I flip on Colts Texans in 2023 a heck of a lot faster than I flipped on Colts Texans really anytime in the last
in a long time. Yeah.
Years.
Since Andrew Luck was there.
I was just gonna say since Andrew Luck was
Luck versus Watson. Yeah.
All right. Speaking about teams that need a bounce back, Matt, how about the New York Giants? And this is the perfect team to go face on the road. The Cardinals are giving up the Cardinals are getting 6 points at home against the visiting New York Giants.
Oh, I mean, nobody was worse than the Giants last year, and now they're going on the road and giving a team 6 points. Like, that's a hard one for me to swallow or put my hard-earned money on. But I still believe the Cardinals are the worst team in the league. I'll take the points, though. I mean, we weren't especially kind to Daniel Jones yesterday, but that's a playoff team a year ago. I'm really torn on this one. I wouldn't touch it. I'm just going to take points.
As unkind as I hope Daniel Jones listened to that podcast and that gets him amped up for this game, because I still believe in some of the talent that the Giants have and Brian Daboll. Yeah. And look, Daniel Jones might not be the best quarterback in the NFC, but he's better than Joshua Dobbs. And so, I mean, there's no way I can take the Cardinals right now, anything less than a touchdown. So, yeah, New York Giants bounce back. They're going to put up some points this week, even though they didn't last week, and maybe even make up for it and get all the points they were supposed to get last week on top of it. So, yeah, I'm giving up those 6 points. It's a weird 6-pack of picks here as far as some of these lines, but I'm going to take the road favorite again here with the New York Giants at Arizona.
I think I might switch it. I'm just sitting here thinking, if they just give the ball to Barkley and Jones has 8 designed runs, how do they block Thibodeau and Lawrence? And that might be enough to win by a touchdown or more. I mean, the Cardinals are really that bad.
It reminds me a little bit of that Texans and Baltimore game from last week. It's like you can be not even on your game, and you should be able to run the ball, put it in the end zone, and not be too threatened by the other team's offense. So that's why I like the Giants.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning that way too.
Okay, next, one more. The final pick of our Sunday 6-pack, which is Commanders at Denver Broncos, and then Thursday night football preview. The Minnesota Vikings trying not to go 0-2 at the Philadelphia Eagles next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. Prize Picks is super simple to play. All you do is you pick 2 players or more, and you pick more or less on their projected stats at Prize Picks. And then you make your entry in less than 60 seconds. It couldn't be easier. A couple taps and you are away, and you could turn $10 into $250 in just those few taps by making your picks. Pick 2 to 6 players, go more than or less than their projected stats. For example, Odell Beckham, more than or less than 50 yards. Josh Allen, I don't think the more than less than interceptions is going to be 3 this week, but maybe you think he might throw the ball to his own team in the end zone a little bit more. Josh Allen, more than or less than 1.5 passing touchdowns. You can find tons of those to play, and there's weekly specials. There's Taco Tuesdays every single week at Prize Picks. All you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app or go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL at sign up for a first deposit match up to $100 at Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Here we go. Washington Commanders. They are on the road at the Denver Broncos. Denver trying to get in the win column this year under Sean Payton. Started a little bit slow, and they played slow all last year, Matt. So at some point, the Denver Broncos have to start showing us a little bit something, right? And they're still favored, though, by 3.5 points despite that at home. I was hoping there would be fewer points, less than a field goal on the Denver side. So this one's actually really tough. I'm interested to hear what you think about the Commanders at Broncos.
It's a stay away from me, and I know this bit me in the butt last week, but I'm a big believer in betting at Denver at home the first 2 weeks of the season because of the altitude, because of the fatigue. And I know I lost that, but the last 25 years of betting history says it's a good bet. So if I had to take one, I would take Denver, but I just said I hate that 0.5 on there, that 3.5. I mean, if it was 2.5, I'd gladly take the Broncos. I think this is a field goal game one way or another. Just talked about the Cardinals. They hung around more with Washington than I would have liked. And if they really are the worst team in the league, are they just bad teams? And that's also kind of true for Denver Raiders. You know, we saw Denver Raiders last week. We saw Commanders, Cardinals. Are we just going to look back and be like, those are 4 really bad teams?
That might be the end of it right there at the end of that conversation. No. But I do like Denver at home here. And even though it's 3.5 points, I might wait and hope that some money comes in on the Commanders and, you know, look at that FanDuel on Sunday morning and then maybe get a field goal or 2.5 points instead. That I'm definitely liking that Broncos side a little bit more. But when you look at Sam Howell and the Washington Commanders offense and how they played against the Cardinals, that game was too close to my liking against the worst team by far, I think, in the NFL, in the Arizona Cardinals. And they're going to be traveling to a tough place to play against a team that should be well coached and a team that might be a little bit angry about dropping week number 1. And then you got Surtain, you know, knocking out one of your weapons if you're Sam Howell. And so I just don't like that combination of things for the Commanders. So don't love it, but give me the Denver Broncos and I'll give up those 3.5 points.
I also think there's a really good chance Jerry Jeudy returns, and they could have used him bad last week.
It's one thing I'm noticing around the league too. It's not so much that teams are adding big time weapons every year and all of a sudden become undefendable, but I think having numerous weapons is so massive. Like we talked in the offseason about the Miami Dolphins offense, and we're like, hey, who's the number 3 guy with after Hill and Waddle? And we saw River Craycraft like catching balls like crazy for him, right? And like at least it worked for him. And luckily Ty Hill went crazy because he's a freak and a difference maker. But I think for a team like the Broncos, just have one more playmaker, one guy that can separate. And for Judy's faults and I'd like to see him play stronger at the catch point, but he's one of the best separators still in the NFL. So just having him out there as someone who can get open and make a play and then maybe hit a seam and make a big catch and run as well. It makes a big difference for an offense. So, yeah, absolutely. If he's out there, that helps.
I think that's a tremendous point. Something I wanted to bring up even earlier in the week, though, and I'm not contradicting what you said because I 100% agree with it. And basically want to piggyback off of what you said. I just don't want any skill guy out there that's not a threat. Everyone has to bring something to the table as a serious threat, not just, he's easy to play against, blah, blah, blah. Yes. But I also think, go ahead.
Oh, that was perfect. That was well said.
Yeah,
better by you than what I was trying to say.
and I also think, though, and I think we're seeing it this all of a sudden in Jacksonville with Ridley, that some of these young quarterbacks, when you give Hurts, A.J. Brown, you give Tua, Tyreek, you give Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, like a stud that you go outside the organization and trade for, that puts a really good prospect over the top as a great player. You know what I mean? That's a different conversation, but I think that's true too.
Yes. Yeah. So difference makers and have threats everywhere. Ideally is how you would draw it up.
Yeah.
And the last one on
Thursday
our list,
night,
that was the 6-pack for this Sunday in week 2. We've got the Minnesota Vikings at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles at home favored by a touchdown against those Minnesota Vikings. Again, we picked a 6-pack of picks that are difficult because of the lines for us to pick today. So we're kind of trying to talk through these. And for the Eagles, they absolutely should be favored. And I actually picked the Minnesota Vikings to finish last in the North this year. So I wouldn't be surprised by an 0-2 start. And then we might start hearing some Kirk Cousins to New York Jets conversations as well. So I've got to stay with the Eagles, and 7 points, Matt, I don't think is enough to talk me out of it. Can you talk me out of it?
I don't think 7.5 would talk me out of it. I'm not sure 8.5 or 9.5 would talk me out of it. Again, I'm a believer that the Eagles, Bengals, Chiefs, Bills, the elite teams are going to kind of put their stamp on things, and especially with everyone looking at this, every eyeball in America on this one. I know the Vikings won 13 games, but I don't think they're nearly in the Eagles class. I do want to mention a couple things on the Eagles defense, though. And the Kobe Dean is out. They've gone through a lot of linebackers and safeties. The spine of the defense is a little soft and scary right now. But I wanted to bring this up Monday. I mean, Jalen Carter might have been the best rookie in the whole league in week 1. He was everything advertised and more. And I like the Vikings tackles, but I don't love their interior O-line. And we know Cousins isn't the most nimble. I think the Eagles blow their doors off, to be honest with you.
2 things I liked. One from the Minnesota Vikings side was the rookie Jordan Addison, and just proving what we talked about, proving that there's another weapon on offense that they didn't have last year besides Justin Jefferson. So that definitely helps. The thing that worries me most about the Vikings is the defensive side of the ball. To be honest with you. I think the offense is going to be fine, so maybe that's enough to keep this close. But I'm glad you brought it down. It was in my notes here about the Eagles, because we hadn't talked about it at all. Jalen Carter looked like the guy who was the number 1 prospect in the draft all along that we were talking about, right? And he slid to the stinking Eagles, who are already so good everywhere.
Right.
And, now I think there was a little awkwardness, new coordinators, both sides of the ball for the Philadelphia Eagles, but they were on the road at Bill Belichick's Patriots with a more well-coordinated offense there for the New England Patriots. And I think this is a lot better situation for them now in week 2 to have gone through some of those early season growing pains to try to figure things out a little bit as it was early in that game, or actually a little bit later in that game, as the Patriots kind of came back a little bit after a big 16-0 lead for Philly and kept it close. But 7 points at home. Yeah, give me those Philadelphia Eagles over the Minnesota Vikings.
Me too. And I think Jalen Hurts fantasy owners are going to be really happy they got him after this game. And Smith and Brown have very, very good matchups. And Goddard sure isn't going to get a 0 again. You know what I mean? I expect that passing game to feast, even if Gainwell's the lead back, which is strange to me, but whatever. They'll run the ball fine no matter who it is.
That was one of the surprising big stock down fantasy-wise last week was DeAndre Swift.
Yeah. Penny was inactive. I mean, it's a weird situation.
It is. But they can still run the ball. And Jalen Hurts. Hey, how about this, though, for Jalen Hurts? You got to stop fumbling the ball.
Needs to be a little cleaner with that stuff.
It's a career-long thing for him. That wasn't just real big fumble in week 1. This is something that's dogged him for a while. And, he carries the ball a lot. And he's just got to be a little bit more careful with football. When your team is that good, don't make mistakes more than, you got to make this big play in this big run.
One other wrinkle on this game that I should have mentioned a little earlier is I feel like we are selling the Vikings offense a little bit short, but they had 0 rushing yards yet last week. And if they're going to ask Cousins on the road Thursday night to drop back 40, 50 times against that pass rush, no.
Right. Yeah. The Vikings are a team I want, Cousins, Jefferson, maybe even Addison on my fantasy team. But I don't know if it's going to relate to wins this season for them.
I think it's going to be a tough year. If you can't run the ball and play defense and Cousins is your quarterback, with all respect to him, he's not Mahomes, he's not Allen, he's not Burrow,
Well, we'll see it tonight. If the Vikings can prove us wrong, Minnesota Vikings at the Philadelphia Eagles to kick off week number 2. And Friday, Matt will come back and break it all down and make the rest of our picks for week 2 of the NFL season. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen every day on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Matt and I back tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.